Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is YAHMAD. We're now going to be completing the next part of the spreadsheet overview video. So we're going to be looking at VLOOKUPs. So using VLOOKUP is similar to looking up a person's name in a telephone book to get their telephone number, or looking up a contact in their mobile phone to get their actual number. So VLOOKUP looks at a value in one column and finds its corresponding value on the same row in another column. So the example we're going to be looking at is the books table. So we need to use a lookup function to find a corresponding data from the lookup table for each book title. So if I show you the file, we have a table here. As you can see, many of the cells are empty. We need to use the lookup value, which will be the book name, and then the table array to find the information relevant to each book so we can fill this data here. Okay, so the VLOOKUP comes in four parts. Okay, the first part is the lookup value. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is select the lookup value. The lookup value will also appear in the lookup table or the table array. Okay, the next thing we need to do is select the table array. So after we've entered the lookup value and you press comma, then you need to identify the lookup table. It may be in the same sheet, the next tab, or another Excel file. So the second part, we have to select the whole lookup table. So you start off by selecting the lookup value and then the output value. So make sure you absolute cell reference the table array. So you need to start by selecting the lookup value and you go right up until you select the output value. So as you can see, the output value will be in a third column, which comes to the next point. Next point is we have to select a column in which the output value will be in. So select the column in the table for the output value. In this example, the shop is in the third column of the selected table, so therefore you'd have to write 3. So this is the lookup value, we go right, and this is the third column. And the last thing is you need to select false, which is an exact match. So if you see this book title, then it's going to show the name of the shop in this column. Okay, so it's an exact match. So remember to close the brackets. Okay, so let's actually do the example now then. So I want to look up the author for each book name. So again, we're going to use the lookup function VLOOKUP because it's vertical. So if I type in VLOOKUP first, as you can see there's 4 parts in the VLOOKUP. I can't move forward until I select the lookup value. So remember the lookup value will also be in a table array. So if I select the first book here, the mistake some people might do is they select the whole range of cells. You only want to select the first book. Remember, you will be replicating and this will be relative referencing. So if you're in this cell here, we're going to be looking at insurgent. Comma. Now we want to select the table array. So the table array might be on the same sheet, on another tab, or on an external document. So the table array is here. Okay, if I highlight the lookup value and go right, so I'm looking up the author. Okay, and then you can go down. So you can see the table has been highlighted. You need to absolute cell reference the table to lock it in, because remember the formula will be replicated and you want this table to stay in one place. The next thing we need to look at is the column. So in which column is the author in from what we selected? So the author would be in the second column. So you type in 2, comma, and you want to select, in this case, the exact match, which means if I see the Hunger Games, it's going to give me Suzanne Collins as the author. So now you have to close the bracket and press enter, and this will return you to this page here. Now you can replicate. And as we said, the Hunger Games has given me Suzanne Collins. If I zoom in, you can have a look. Okay, so let's do 2 more examples. So again, equal VLOOKUP. Okay, the lookup value will again be the book name. So remember, this book name appears in the table array. So comma. If we go to the table array, I highlight from the lookup value, and then we go right. Okay, so we're looking up the shop name now. Let me absolute cell reference this table. this time the column index will be the third column. So we selected from this column. We're not looking for the author, we're looking for the shop name. So the shop name was in the third column of what we highlighted. And then again, it's going to be an exact match. So if we close the bracket, okay. And what you can do, you can check to see if we got the correct shop. So the Hunger Games should be Amazon. The Hunger Games, yes, was Amazon here. So I'll do one final example. So we're looking up the stock level now. So again, we can use the book name. So equal VLOOKUP. Let's select the book name. That's the lookup value. Go to my table array. So again, you select the lookup value and you go right. So we want to find the stock level, which is in the fourth column of what we're highlighting. So put my dollar signs in. Comma, the column index is 4. And then the exact match. So let me drag this down again. So we're replicating. Okay, so the Hunger Games, we're saying the stock level is 0. So if we look at the lookup table, let me just double check. The Hunger Games, yeah, the stock level is 0. So that's done. Okay, so that's the simple VLOOKUP. Let's look at this example here. So when you're looking at a table array, you must always start from the cell you're looking up. So in this example, we want to find the goals scored. So this is blank. So the lookup value will be the player name. Okay. So if I just zoom in a little bit. So this is the table which we're going to be using it for the table array. As you can see, the lookup value appears in the third column. So the mistake some people would do, they would highlight the whole table to the goals scored. What you have to do is you highlight from what you're looking up. So we're going to be looking up the player name. And then you go right, okay, and select the third column. So you basically have to highlight this table here. You lock it in, and then the column index will be the third column. So be careful when you are highlighting your table array. You only highlight from what you're looking up, and then with a VLOOKUP you go right, okay. So the information will be in this column here for this lookup value. Right, so we looked at an exact lookup. Now we're going to be looking at what an approximate lookup is at the end. So the exact lookup, just to remind you guys, was, for example, let's find Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Okay, the exact match will be this one here, and the goal scored will be 29. So this value here has to exactly match up with the value in the lookup value in the first part of the VLOOKUP, okay? Now the approximate is slightly different. Okay, so if I use an approximate, so for example, if I do an equal VLOOKUP and I select the code as a lookup value, then I select this table as a table array and the second column as the output. And then if I select approximate, what the approximate will match up is the first character. So A will match up to A, this one here, and then it will be, the output will be action. So we see D will be adventure, C will be drama, and B should be horror movie. Okay, so basically this code is not an exact match with these values here. So if you use an approximate match in this example here, it's going to use up the first character. Also, another example is a grading. So here we have grade boundaries. So 90% plus would be A star, between 80 and 90 would be an A. So here we're going to be using the percentage value as a lookup. This will be the table array. We're going to be using the second column as the output, and again we want an approximate match. So 96 does not appear in the table, but obviously it is above 90. So if they have 96, then the output will be an A star. So when the lookup value does not have an exact match in the table array, then you must use an approximate match. So with the grades example, if the percentage is 90% or more, then a grade will be an A star. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at HLOOKUPs. So HLOOKUP works horizontally. You will be required to select the row rather than a column for VLOOKUP. So the first part is again to select a lookup value. Then we're going to select the table array. So this time we're going across, okay? So you select the table array and absolute cell reference. So the difference between the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP, we're going to be identifying not the column in this case, so this was the third column. We want to identify in which row is the information. So in this case, the information will be held in row 2. And then you can select either the exact or the approximate match. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing a HLOOKUP example, just to show you the difference between the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP. Just before I do this example, let me just quickly do the approximate lookup using the grades. Okay, so like I said, this will be the lookup value. This is going to be the table array. So if I type in equal VLOOKUP, we want to look up the grade M5. The table array will be this table here. So I need to lock this cells into place. So again, use your shortcut key on your keyboard. I have to type it in one by one, $sign to absolute cell reference, comma. We're going to be referring to the second column for the grade, and in this case we want an approximate match. Okay, enter. And if I drag this down, you can see the corresponding grade. So if I was to change the 67 to 92, I'm expecting to see A star, and that's the case. If I change it to a number between 80 and 90, I should expect to see an A grade. So 82, yep, so it's automatically working. Now we're going to be using the HLOOKUP. This is known as a VLOOKUP because it's going down. As you can see, this one's going to be going across. So this is a horizontal lookup. So we're going to be using the job codes in this table here. So if I type in equal HLOOKUP, you'll notice if I click up here, it's slightly different. Rather than the column index, it's a row index. So what we want to look up is MA. So we want to look up the job titles basically, comma. If I go to the table array, which is in the job codes, highlight the whole table. Again, let me just absolute the cell reference this table. And this part is different. So obviously we're not going to be referring to the different columns. We want to refer to which row is the data in, and in this case it's going to be the second row of what we highlighted. So if I press 2, comma, and then this will be an exact match. Enter. And then we drag this one horizontally across. So CL should have been a cleaner. Let me double check. Yes, it is. So that's the HLOOKUP. Okay. Now this sheet here, or this lookup example here, uses an external table on a different sheet. So if you're going to do a lookup using external, my advice is open up that sheet first and then start the VLOOKUP. If you type in equal VLOOKUP, okay, and then you try opening up the sheet, it's not going to work. So remember, if you're using or doing a lookup to an external sheet, open up the sheet first and then start typing in the formula. So if you're having problems and there's a delay, then you'd have to delete the formula, open the sheet, and then enter the formula again. Okay, so let's go. So the last thing I want to actually show you before I move on to the next section is this example here. So we're going to be working out the weekly pay. Okay, so the first thing I need to do, name the table L21, which is here, to M21 as rate. So we want to define the name of this table. So if I select this table, right click and I click on define name, I want to call it rate. So because I have defined the name, there's no need to now absolute cell reference this table. Now use a lookup function to work out each employee's pay rate per hour, and then we need to multiply the pay rate by the hours worked. So we need to find basically the weekly pay. We're going to split this function into two parts. So the first part is we want to find out which pay grade they are. Okay, so if it's A, B, C, and D. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is enter a VLOOKUP. Okay, and we want to look up the pay rate, which is in this column here, comma. For the table array, if I highlight the table, you'll notice as soon as I highlight the full table, it'll change to rate, which is what we want. You could also just typed in the name of the table, comma, we want to look in the second column of what we highlighted to get the output, comma, and then we want the exact match. So I've completed the first part of this formula, okay, and A has given me 20, which is correct. Yeah, that's what I should be expecting. If I drag it down, C should give me 10. Now I've completed the first part and it's working. Now what I need to do is complete the second part. So I always say split the question in two parts if you can. We need to basically multiply this by the number of hours worked. So this is how much you get paid per hour, and then we have to multiply against the hours worked in that week, and that will give us our answer, which is 600. And then we can change it to currency. Okay, and then we can replicate the function. Okay, so we've so far looked at the VLOOKUP. This was an example of the VLOOKUP. If we go up, okay, this was the VLOOKUP. It was a vertical lookup. So we're using columns. Okay, so we have to identify the column index number. So from what you highlighted in the table array, and then we've also now looked at using approximate and exact matches. Then we've looked at using a HLOOKUP, which identifies the row rather than a column for the output. Okay, we are going to be looking at lookup. Okay, so this is just a lookup. It's not vertical, it's not horizontal, it's slightly different. But before I come to this one, let me look at this one here. So this question came once in the November 2014 paper. So let me show you the question. In cell C1, to use a formula to look up the type of cycle, use the first character of the item code as a single lookup value and the named range type for the array. So basically, in this example here, let me show you this example first of all. The first character of the barcode needs to be used as a single lookup value in a table array shown below. Okay, so we need to use, it's not going to be an approximate match, we want to do an exact match using the first character of the barcode. Okay, so the match will be an exact match. So what we need to do is we have to extract the first character. So the extract function, so if I use left, it returns a specified number of characters from the start of the text string. If I use right, it returns a specified numbers of characters from the end of a text string. And if I use mid, it returns the characters from the middle of a text string, given a starting position and length. So let me go to this example here. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to do it up here. Let's say if I want to extract the first character, I type in equal left, returns a specified number of characters from the start of a text string. So we read from left to right. So if we click on left, I highlight the cell from which I want to extract the characters from. And then if you can see the next part says how many characters do you want to extract? I want to extract only one. So now if I close the bracket, it should give me A, which it has in this case. In this example here, I'm going to extract the characters on the right hand side, so I'm going to use equal right. Returns a specified number of characters from the end of a text string. So if I click on right, this is the text here. Number of characters. This time I want 2, so I want to extract NI. So I type in 2, close the bracket, enter, and as you can see, NI. What if I wanted to extract the middle characters, so the 3 zeros in the middle? So this time I use a mid function. So returns the characters from the middle of a text string given a starting position and length. So if I type in equal mid, this is a text, and this one's slightly different. We have a start number. So start number is where do we want to start counting from or extracting from. So it's going to be the third value in, which is this one here. So you type in 3. And then how many number of characters do we want to extract? We want to extract 3. So if I close the bracket, it should give me 3 zeros. So it's basically extracted in the middle. Okay, so let's look at this example here. So we're going to be doing a VLOOKUP, but we only want to extract the first character as a single lookup code. So if I type in VLOOKUP, so in a lookup value, we have to use the left function. So if I click on left, again, highlight the cell, comma, the number of characters, close the bracket until you get back to the rest of the VLOOKUP, comma, then you can select the table array. Let me lock in a table array. Okay, comma, second column, and it's going to be an exact match. Okay, I know the barcode and these values don't match, but we're not looking at the full barcode. We're only looking at the character which we extracted, which was the first character. So therefore, it is an exact match. Now we can close the brackets. And as you can see, A is given us Samsung. Let me quickly do this example using the right extraction. So equal VLOOKUP. This time we want to extract 2 characters from the right. So this is a text, comma 2. Close the bracket to return us to the VLOOKUP. Go to the table array. Let's lock it in. Okay, comma, the column index is 2, and again it's going to be an exact match because NI matches up with the code down here. Enter. And NI is given as Nissan, the next one should be Toyota. Yep, I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at using a lookup function. Now this has never come in an exam to my knowledge, however it's in the syllabus, so it's worth covering this function. So the reason we can use a lookup function, it provides more flexibility than a typical VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. It basically provides backward compatibility, which means if I look up the order ID, the vector mask will be here, so the lookup vector, and then the results vector will be here. So this time we're going to be going backwards. So if I go back to the VLOOKUP example, normally when you select a table array, the lookup value is on the left side, and then you go right to find the output. So with the lookup, you can go backwards. Okay, so it looks up a value from one row or one column or from an array. So let me show you the difference. If I open up the example, so the order ID will be the lookup value. Okay, this will be the first thing we need to look up, and then this will be the next thing. So let's do the actual formula. So this time it's going to be lookup. Okay, it looks up a value either from one row or one column range or from an array. So provided for backward compatibility. So if I click on lookup, the lookup value will be the order ID, comma, the lookup vector will be where the order ID will be. So it will be within this range here. So let me lock this in because it's going to be replicated, comma, and then the results vector is where is the salesperson's name. Is it here or is it here? So it's in this range here. So again, if I lock this in and close the bracket, whoops. So before I enter, press enter, 4541 should give me Lionel Messi. 4544 should give me Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So if I press enter, and then if I replicate, you can see we've got the right values. So Cavani was 49. Yep, Edison Cavani, and Ronaldo was 42. So let's do the branch again. Or this, let's do this one as another example. So if I type in equal VLOOKUP, not VLOOKUP, equal lookup, again we can select the order ID as a lookup value. The lookup vector will now be the order ID. So these two basically have to match. Let me lock this in. Okay, comma, and then the results vector will be this range here, which includes the branch values. So it's basically going to find the value and then go backwards, looking up in the same column in this example. So if I close the bracket, so Lionel Messi's branch, so 4541 matches up with this value, and if I go to this column here, it should be Leeds. If I press enter, yes, he works in Leeds. Zlatan Ibrahimovic should work in London. Cavani should work in Manchester, and then Cristiano Ronaldo also works in Manchester. Yep, that's correct. So task 2 is going to be slightly different. So we got a horizontal and vertical array in which we can look in. So if I go to the next example, Okay, so in the next example, we want to look up the barcode, which is in this lookup vector, and then the results, which is in this vector here. So basically what's going to happen is going to find this barcode 4542, which is the second value here, and it should print off eggs, which is the second value in this column. So we have a horizontal row and then obviously a vertical column. So if it's a third value, it's going to match up with a third value in this range here. So let's do the example. And again, you can see the flexibility. Now we're using a column and a row to find a specific value. So if I type again lookup, we want to look up the barcode. Okay, the lookup vector will include the barcode values. So let me lock this in. Comma, and the results vector is where are the items? The item is here. Okay, so we should get eggs. Okay, so if I close the brackets, enter, yeah, 43 is the third one, should give us bread. So if we replicate this, 41 is the first one, gives us milk. 44 is the fourth option, which is the fourth option here, and that gives us butter. Now let's find the supplier code. Okay, so again, lookup, we want to look up the barcode in this horizontal array here. Let me lock it in. Comma, and then the results vector is going to be this one here. Okay, so before press enter, so 42 should refer to this code here. It's the second value, MA455. Yep, and that's what we've got. So I've never seen this lookup function come up in the exam before, but obviously it's part of the syllabus, so it's worth knowing. Okay, so how do we know when to use a lookup? So these are some exam questions, and you'll notice I've highlighted the key part. Sometimes they may say lookup, that gives you a clue, but then how do you know if it's a VLOOKUP, a HLOOKUP, or just a lookup? So in this question here in cell D22, use a lookup function to show the job description. Use a code column for the lookup value and a job codes table for the array. So if it's a vertical table with columns, then it's probably going to be a VLOOKUP. If it's using rows, then it's going to be a HLOOKUP. If you have to go backwards to find a particular value, then you can use the lookup instead. So as you can see, I've underlined the key parts, so lookup function to show the job description. We have the table array here, and then we have some criteria which can be used as a lookup value. Okay, so again, I've underlined lookup, the rates of pay from the named rate or named range rate, and multiply it by the number of hours worked. This was very similar to basically this question I did. So we had to look up a table called rate, okay, and then we had to multiply it against the hours worked. So this was done in two parts. Okay, so first we found the pay rate, and then we multiplied by the hours worked. So as you can see, I'm underlining the key parts. So again, a lookup function to show the job descriptions. We use a job code column as a lookup value, and a range code for the array. So it's the keywords you need to be looking out for. Again, lookup function to show the destination. This time you have to open up the external sheet, and remember, if you're doing a lookup to an external sheet, don't type in equals and then try and open up the sheets. Delete that equals. Open the sheet first before you start typing in the VLOOKUP or the lookup. Okay, when you are using an external sheet, the absolute cell referencing will be done automatically. So again, this one will be to an external sheet. Okay, so before we do move on, I wanted to show you what I mean by using an external sheet actually. So for example, if I go to here, I need to use the movie sheet which I've downloaded and placed here. So I haven't opened up the sheet yet. If I start typing equal VLOOKUP, select the lookup value, comma, and then if I come to here and I try open up movies, it's not going to do anything. And then some people were looking around thinking there's a problem with the computer. So it's not a problem with the computer. What you need to do is delete the formula. As soon as you delete it, it opens up. But what you should be doing is open up the formula first, or open up the sheet first. So if I go back here, once it's open, then we can do the VLOOKUP. We can select the lookup value. The table array will be obviously in a different sheet. So you don't select from here, you select from what you're looking up. And we want to find the genre. I don't need help. Okay, and then you highlight what you want to look up. So the genre is in the third column. As you can see, it's absolute cell reference automatically. Comma, free, comma, exact match, close the bracket, job done. Okay. Right, so now we're going to be looking at a question from March 2017. Okay, this was the first time I've seen in an exam paper where we had to do an if statement, and then if the statement was true, the logical test was true, we ran the VLOOKUP. So let me see this question here. So employees are paid to work for 50 weeks in each year and get 2 weeks unpaid holiday. Some employees are paid weekly and some are paid monthly. So this was the question. In cell F4, enter a formula to calculate a weekly wage for this employee using the annual salary from their M17 data.csv. Okay, the formula must display the weekly wage only if the pay type is W. So we're doing an if statement to check if the pay type is W. If the pay type is not W, then do not display anything in the cell. So the false will be a speech mark with a blank space. So basically, if it is W, what we need to do is calculate the weekly wage for this employee using the annual salary from the file M17 data. So it's going to be a lookup. Okay, and this one's a similar example. So this time we're working out the monthly salary. So we first do the if statement to check the condition, and if the condition is true, then we run the VLOOKUP. Now I've divided this VLOOKUP by 50 because we were looking up the weekly wage, and they only paid for 50 weeks in each year. If I put divide 50 outside of the brackets and it's false, then that's not going to give us a value. So you can't basically divide a blank space by 50. And this one's the monthly salary. Obviously we have 12 months in a year. So let me show you that example. Let me find the example. Here we go. Okay, I've actually got the data here to save myself some time. So let's do cell 4 first. Okay, so this will be the weekly wage. So enter formula to calculate the weekly wage for this employee using the annual salary. Okay, so the annual salary is down here, as you can see. The formula must display the weekly wage only if the pay type is W. If the pay type is not W, then do not display anything in this cell. So the pay type is here. So in this example, we want to work out the annual salary. But obviously here, it does not display S. So if the pay type is not W, then do not display anything in this cell. Okay, so let me just do the formula now and to show you what we have to do. So first of all, it's equal if. We want to find out if the pay type is equal to W, comma, and if that's true, let's run the VLOOKUP. Okay, so we first need to identify a lookup value, which is the same here and the same here. So what we can do is use a job code, comma, and we select the table array and absolute cell reference it. Okay, comma, we want to look in the third column to get the annual salary from what we highlighted, comma, and then we want the exact match. If I close the bracket, now what I need to do, I need to now divide this value by 50 because they're only paid by 50. So if I do /50, okay, comma, and if it's not W, then we just don't want to show anything, then we can just insert speech marks. If I close the bracket, here we have the weekly salary, so we drag it down, and for the third cell we should expect to see nothing, which is what we've got. Now let's say, for example, if I delete that /50, so we've just received the annual salary. Okay, this is not what we wanted. Some people might do /50 on the outside, and it's going to work for all of them apart from this one here, because you can't divide a blank space by 50. So that's the reason why we have to have 50 after the VLOOKUP and before the false. Okay, so now if I replicate, okay, so this is basically a true statement, and if it's not this, then we just display a blank space. Okay, and the monthly salary is obviously the same thing, but we only divide by 12. So if it's not equal to S, okay, then we're going to show a blank space. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at sorting data. So custom sort dialog box, which enables sorting by multiple columns and rows. So the example we want to look at is this one here. So what we want to do is we want to sort by year group, smallest to largest, so it should be from 7 to 9, and then by house A to Z. So we have to follow 3 steps. We highlight the table, then we go to sort and filter and select custom sort, and then we select the sort criteria, and then if necessary add another level. So let me first of all highlight the table, select sort and filter, custom sort. So the first thing we need to do is sort the year from smallest to largest, and then if I add a level, then we can select the house and we can leave that as A to Z. So now as you can see, all of the values in the table have changed accordingly. So we go from year 7, year 8, okay, and year 9, and within that you can see the house has also been sorted alphabetically, so B, C, E, and then W, okay, and then B, C, E, W, as you can see. So that was the custom sort. We're now going to be looking at using test tables, okay. So here we have a nested if. So basically, if goal scored is less than 16, then a goal bonus type is A. If goals scored are more than or equal to 16 but less than 30, then a goal bonus is going to be B. If the goals scored are more than or equal to 30, then a goal bonus is going to be C. So you may be asked to input some data and then write down the expected values from the output. Okay, so in B11, so B11 will be the goals. If I choose number 1, which would be an extreme example of data, because it's on the range or at the end of the range. So 1 is obviously less than 16. So in C11, I expect to see bonus A, and then the actual result was bonus A. The next value I chose was 25, which is a normal value. So 25 is obviously not less than 16. It's more than 16 but less than 30. So in C12, which is a cell here, I expect to see bonus B, and then the actual outcome was bonus B. Okay, in the November 2015 example, they were asking you to enter a value, okay, into the cell here. So initially we typed in a formula which wouldn't give us any values until we typed in test data. So what we have here is hours worked. Okay, so the pay will be basically the hours worked multiplied by the pay rate. Okay, so in a test table, I chose to type in F4 25. Okay, and then in G4, which includes the pay, what was the expected output? So if you multiply 25 by 9, I expected 225, and the actual outcome was 225. So tip, you should always expect to see the actual outcome before you complete the formula. It may be worth using a simple value to calculate. So imagine if I typed in 10 times 9 should give me 90 as the expected outcome, and then the actual outcome was 90. Okay, in the next example, we're going to be testing a nested if. So the nested if has 3 conditions, well, two true statements and 1 false statement. So we're looking at the contract hours and the hours worked. So basically in the question, in cell H4 enter a formula, so this is H4, to display the word yes if the hours worked are greater than the contract hours. Okay, so if I typed in in this cell here a higher number than the contract hours, then that should give me yes. So the first condition I typed in was a higher number than the contract hours, which is 36 in F4, and then in H4 the expected and the actual outcome was yes. Okay, so if the hours worked are greater. Display the word no if the hours worked are the same as the contract hours. So that's the second condition. So if I typed in 35, which would be the same as the contract hours, okay, that would give me the word no. Okay, so, and then the last part is if the hours worked are the same, yeah, we've done that one. Or display the word incomplete if the hours worked are less than the contract hours. So in this occasion, I typed in a number which is less than the contract hours, and that would have given me incomplete in H4. So when you are checking the conditions, or if you are testing a nested if, enter values which will basically check each part of the formula. It's no point typing in 40, 41, 42 because that would give me yes all the way through. So you want to type in values which will either give you yes or no or an incomplete, which covers each part of the formula.